First, though, we go to the tens of thousands of Hollywood actors who are on strike. It is the industry's biggest shutdown for more than 60 years, and it affects the vast majority of American film and television productions, including the Avatar and Gladiator sequels. The Screen Actors Guild Union wants studios and streaming giants to give performers what they say is a fairer share of profits, and it wants assurances about the use of artificial intelligence. Our correspondent Neda Tawfiq is out on the picket lines in New York. Neda, tell us what you've been hearing and seeing there.
Yeah, well, we've seen a number of familiar faces here on the picket line, including A-list stars like Susan Sarandon and Olivia Wilde. And many, including the Writers Guild, other unions, have joined to show their solidarity. Every time a few cars pass by, we hear occasionally some honks in support. So some real momentum on this first day of picketing. This, of course, is the Netflix, the streaming giant's offices in New York, but there are 3 other locations throughout the city. And look, actors say that they didn't want to strike. The ones we've spoken to say they feel they had to, though, because of this inflection point in the industry with so much upheaval and change. Now that they are relying on streaming instead of network television and DVDs, they say there's just not enough transparency in the success rates of certain shows, on the duration of royalties. They want a better piece of the pie, essentially, to share in the profits, as you mentioned earlier. And then, of course, AI. Even A-list celebrities like Susan Sarandon saying that she is extremely concerned about the future of perhaps artificial intelligence generating not just voices but images and replacing real people on screen, or their likeness being replicated. So a lot here happening, and I think what we're seeing in this industry dispute can really transfer across to other industries across the United States. So many will be looking to see how this is resolved.
Yes, that is the question, isn't it, Neda? And are there signs this could go on for a long time? Because the two sides seem very far apart.
Yeah, that's right. We've heard a lot from the president of the New York SAG here, how he felt in the negotiating room where he was that there was a lot of disrespect. So certainly there's been a lot of heated rhetoric. Even Fran Dresser, the president of SAG in Hollywood, saying how it was just disgusting to see how the studios had been responding, talking a lot about corporate greed. So a lot of heated comments have been thrown out there. I mean, look, this is the first industry-wide shutdown for 60 years, but the actors did go on strike back in the 80s. That took several months. We're already hearing talk that this could last until at least October. And so things like the Emmy Awards that normally take place in September, there's talks about having to delay that. But nobody, again, as I said here, is happy about what's happening, because this is going to affect an industry that employs so many, from costume design, set design, so not just writers and actors. And so many cities now, including Los Angeles and New York, bracing for the impact economically.
All right, Neda, thank you for that update from the picket lines in New York. And I'm joined now by Sharma, the actor from The Chosen, also a board member of the Screen Actors Guild. Thank you very much for making time to talk to us. Now we're seeing those passionate scenes on the street of New York and similar scenes elsewhere in Los Angeles. Tell us what this is fundamentally about for actors like yourself, for writers. What do they want to see happen?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is fundamentally about the fact that the business model has completely changed. Our contract is based on a very different way for the public to consume film and television. And now for it to be moved online and to use these streaming platforms to distribute our work, the residuals, formulas, the way that we're paid, none of it is sustainable, since we had to discount our services essentially in previous negotiations just to get jurisdiction to be covered and to be paid for the way they exhibit our work on these platforms. And now with them racing to compete with each other of who can create the most content, and then to now be dumping that content because they don't want to pay the residuals on those programs and actually deplatforming them off of their platforms, it feels like they're turning our work into a kind of fast fashion of entertainment. And it's abusing our membership. We're not meaningfully participating in the economic value that we bring to these companies, and they're paying their CEOs hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's just not fair. And the attitude that we encountered in the negotiating room made it pretty clear that they want to impoverish us, they want to impoverish the Writers Guild, so that we'll be so desperate that we'll take any deal and continue to maximize their profits.
Just help us understand the impact of streaming, because one would imagine that with much more content than ever, there should be more work for actors and writers. Why then are actors and writers not getting, an increased amount of pay from the increased amount of content?
Yeah, you would be shocked to know how much we are paid for these streaming shows. The pay scales that we get for broadcast television and cable are much greater than the streaming platforms pay. So we're not getting the same paycheck for the same amount of work simply because people are consuming it online versus on traditional television. And also the way that we get residuals is different, because on broadcast TV, we would get paid every time our show reruns or when it's put into syndication. But online, we're not given viewership data. We don't know how successful our work is. They're not paying us the residuals over many years that would compensate us fairly by deplatforming our work, basically taking our artwork and disappearing it so that nobody can see it and has access to it. It's like taking our creative legacy of our generation and just throwing it down the memory hole. So our residuals formulas are just not keeping up. Our pay scales are just not keeping up, even if there's more technical shows that are in operation. But also bear in mind that we used to have 25, 28 episodes a season. Now it's very typical for a show to have 8 or 10 episodes for an entire season. And also these shows don't go on for multiple seasons. They are canceled after 1 season or 2 seasons. And so you don't even get a chance to really earn enough money to hold you over through the lean times. Every actor knows you have your times where you're making money, where you're on a job, but then you also depend on the earnings and the residuals to get you through the low points, and we just don't have that anymore.
So just for clarity, when you say residuals, those are like royalties, right, for actors that you would get for work that you've already done. But looking at the studios say that the reason they make these economic decisions is because of the difficult economic climate. Obviously, that's not necessarily an argument that's going down well, considering the average pay for a top Hollywood executive was $28 million in 2021. But also, are you concerned about the length of time this strike could go on? Because there has been a suggestion that some members of on the studio side are hoping this goes on long enough that it starts to really bite into people's bills and paychecks, and they have no choice but to go back to work.
Yeah, that's being very kind. We have reports of multiple studio executives saying that they want us to be impoverished, they want us to lose our apartments and our homes, and that is a quote-unquote cruel but necessary evil. And that's the kind of sociopathy that we see in some of corporate America, where the demand for short-term profits for executive compensation bonuses. For example, Bob Iger of Disney has a contractual clause that he gets a 500% bonus of his base salary based on the stock performance. So anything they can do to boost short-term profits for their own benefit is what they are doing, and it's exploiting us. Our actual earnings, adjusted for inflation, have gone down, and yet they've raised the prices of these platforms by 20 to 40%. We're not sharing in any of that additional revenue on a subscription-based model. So they went on a reckless spending spree when Wall Street was demanding growth. So they were just ordering shows left and right and spending tons of money on celebrity development deals. And now that Wall Street is demanding profitability, they're claiming poverty. And it's just not genuine. It's just a bait and switch. We're not actually even dealing with filmmakers and artists anymore. We're dealing with Wall Street. And so it's the shareholders and the CEOs that we have to hold accountable for the ethical failings of this process.
Shan, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us today. Shan Sharma is an actor from The Chosen and a board member of the Screen Actors Guild. Now, we'll bring you more now on those strikes in Hollywood. The writers and actors are getting widespread support from across the industry, including those who are itching to make more films. You may know the film director Christopher Nolan. He writes the screenplays for many of his movies, and he's told the BBC that he won't write another film until the actors and writers strike is resolved. The acclaimed director was speaking ahead of the premiere of his latest film, Oppenheimer, which is about the American scientist who's described as the father of the atomic bomb. Our culture editor, Katie Razzle, went to meet him.
The first test of the atomic bomb in the New Mexico desert.
The test in 1945 was codenamed Trinity, an atomic bomb created by scientists working for the US government and used controversially to end World War II.
The world will remember this day.
Now, one of the world's most renowned film directors, Christopher Nolan, is telling the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist behind the bomb and that test.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
I became really interested in exploring that moment, taking the audience to that moment where they made that incredible decision.
What do you want from theory alone?
Zero would be nice.
How could you take that on yourself? You know there's a possibility that when you push that button, you might destroy the entire world. And yet they went ahead and they pushed it.
Making the bomb was a triumph of human ingenuity and science that also heralded the potential end of civilization. Here's Oppenheimer quoting from Hindu scripture in 1965.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
He never apologized for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He never expressed individual shame about that. All of his actions post-1945, to me, are the actions of somebody racked by guilt.
The film's stars appeared at the premiere in London last night, but as the news came that actors would be joining writers on the picket lines, they left before the film started. Nolan, who writes his own movies, is already on strike.
So you will not be writing another film while this strike is on?
No, absolutely. And this is not about me. This is about jobbing actors. This is about staff writers on television programs trying to raise a family, trying to be able to keep food on the table. These companies have not yet accommodated how they're going to, in this new world of streaming, pay appropriately.
We're dreaming?
Any delay from Nolan is a loss to cinema. From a director behind critically acclaimed blockbusters like Inception and epics, including the Second World War drama Dunkirk. Oppenheimer is his latest movie to take on big themes. And with the film focused on the nuclear arms race, what does he think of the other existential threat to humankind, AI?
When you talk to leaders in the field of AI, as I do from time to time, they see this moment right now as their Oppenheimer moment. They're looking to his story to say, okay, what are our responsibilities? How can we deal with the potential of unintended consequences?
When we detonate an atomic device, we might start a chain reaction that destroys the world.
There are ethical lessons for the future in this timely film about a scientific genius whose actions irrevocably changed life on Earth. Katie Razzle, BBC News.